All right. Welcome back, everyone, to the Suit Yourself podcast, part of the Finish First Media Network. Today is September 7th of 2020, the year of terrible. It is co-host number 1, myself, Austin, joined by fellow co-host number 2.
But not number 2 in the audience is hard, I hope.
Both number 1.
Hopefully.
Probably
Brandon.
not. Nobody likes me.
Yeah, that's fair.
We're going to start today's show off by asking Brandon a classic podcast question.
Well, what do you think? What do you think of that intro? That intro music
It's going to sound incredible in post.
in post.
Yep.
Thank
I was dancing to
thank
music
you.
I can't hear, so I'm very excited to see how this goes. Traditional podcast question. What is your favorite shape and why?
What kind of a question is that? Nobody has a favorite shape. I guess that one guy in Sesame Street, I remember, Telly. He liked, I think, triangles.
All right. Well,
I
that's
don't
a
know
weird
why.
way to take that,
I don't know
but okay.
why I remember that.
How about you? Unless you were
Telly.
Telly.
No, I'm not Telly.
Okay.
I certainly hope not.
Kind of look like him.
I don't know. Maybe squares.
Any reason?
No, that was the first shape that came to my head. A nice rhombus.
It does look nice in 3D.
It's hip. That's a cube at that point, but it is hip to be square. Although triangles are the strongest shape, I'd say probably the square. Yeah.
Incredible. Thank you for that answer.
Do you have an answer to this or no?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
All right. So for the podcast portion, for the football portion, which you're probably here for, or maybe not, maybe you stumbled into this, but we are going to review the what are we going to review, Brandon? I'm passing it over.
Oh, we are going to review ADP, what we like and what we don't like about it.
Incredible. We are also going to be reviewing the dumbest way possible to set a DFS lineup.
Okay.
And we're going to do that by, let me switch cams here. We're going to open this magnificent pack of football cards.
That's a thick pack.
And that is going...
Show them a different angle. How
we're
thick it is.
going to use this to determine a DFS lineup.
But how are you able to do DFS? What steps did you have to take?
Well, I had to go drive to a casino
How far was that?
and log into... I just had to get on the Wi-Fi. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I just had to log into the app on Wi-Fi.
For those who don't know, it's not illegal, but how there's really strict laws regarding online gambling, correct?
Well, it depends on the state.
State.
This is through DraftKings. It's only legal in, 6 or 7 states now?
Yeah.
But yeah, for our state, you have to actually go to a physical casino and log into an app because that makes sense. I don't know why.
Some nonsense.
So that was great. Believe it or not, football cards are actually extremely hard to find right now, too. It took me 5 stores, and the best I could do was get Panini's Score, which for all you card fans out there is the worst kind of card you can buy outside of collegiate football. But that is all I could find, and it cost me $20 for 1 pack. So, yay me. So, we have 40 cards to create a DFS lineup. We will not do that all on camera. There will be some incredible editing. So you are not sitting there watching the painstaking process of me putting a DFS lineup together.
So this is a pretty expensive segment. You had to drive all the way to Jefferson. You had to drive to 5 different stores and get a $20 pack. And for that, we'd advise you to leave a like. Not only for his hard work, but to generate that ad revenue so that maybe we could recoup some of the funds.
There's just me hoping that I can somehow pull like a Joe Burrow autograph card, but
Yeah, that'll probably happen.
it's not going to happen. No,
It might.
My rookie card is going to be some 4th string O lineman or something, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Alas, we will jump straight into the ADP. We used a website which uses the aggregate of all the formats and puts together an average draft list of the players. And so Brandon and I went through there and we kind of took notes and we came away with who we thought was really overvalued and really undervalued based upon that. So we'll kind of just move back and forth. I believe these are DFS stats. Are
DFS.
or I'm sorry, excuse me. Are these PPR?
Yeah.
Okay, and these are for PPR, so these are not standard. Brandon, how about you give us our first one, and then we'll just move back and forth.
Do you want me to say one I like or one I dislike?
Let's go through. Do you want to go position at a time, or do you
Yeah.
just want to go? Okay, so go ahead and start with. Do you want to start with running back or wide receiver?
Let's start quarterback.
Oh, really switching it up. That sounds
Switch
great.
it up.
Go ahead and give us a start with somebody that you thought is a good value.
Somebody with a good value. Just pulling up my list real quick. Somebody I thought had a really good value. I'm going to put 2 of them in one because they're drafted back to back. and that is Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson, which might be a bit of a hot take just due to the fact that they are the 3 and 4. However, if I look at people around them, Kyler Murray is 4 spots behind Russell Wilson especially, and I have so much more faith in Russell Wilson than I do Kyler Murray. With Kyler Murray, people are drafting him to be Russell Wilson, but in reality, Russell Wilson is already Russell Wilson. So I don't see why they're so close to each other. That being said, especially with guys like Dak, who he averaged, I think, close to around 23 to 25 a game last year, which was very good. In that range. He is being drafted behind a guy like Terry McLaurin and behind DJ Chark, behind guys like significantly further behind guys like Robert Woods. And with the first 2 rounds, at least I feel like you're supposed to play it kind of safe, and you're not going to win your league with the first 2 rounds, but rounds like 3 through 6 are where you're going to make up a lot of that ground. And that being said, with guys like Robert Woods, I don't think you're going to win your league with him. So I'd rather get a guy like 10 picks later like Dak Prescott who could actually win you some games than guys like Robert Woods. And I know I undervalue Robert Woods, but he's just the example I saw. Even DJ Chark, he's being picked significantly further ahead of both of these guys, and I think these guys could add more value to your team than guys like him.
I gotcha. That's definitely a good point on that. Kind of depends what your draft philosophy is a little bit on that. For mine, the first quarterback I have is Ben Roethlisberger. He's being drafted at quarterback number 14, overall number 126. I just think Ben has a lot to offer at that spot. If you look, and I know it's kind of hard because he's older and he's coming off the serious injury, but if you just look at his stats from when he was right and when everything was working, it's just hard for me to sit there and say, not a great option. I mean, in 2018. He passed for 5,100 yards and 34 touchdowns. And so, and like I said, there's a big risk. Based on where he's being drafted, I wouldn't call it a risk, but there's risk baked into him that, hey, he's not the same guy, this, that, and the other thing, but he has extremely good weapons in the run game and the pass game. And I don't know why he can't get close to, he doesn't even have to replicate that to be worth more than the 17 or whatever he's, what did I say? Yeah, the 14, excuse me. And so I think he's a very low-risk option who can produce top 5 QB numbers there. And so he's lost a little weight, and he's looking like he's in game shape. His head looking bigger than ever. And so I'm excited to see what he can do this year. And he's just one of those guys. I love taking a stab on him in drafts just because I think he can deliver a top 5 at essentially a nearly free price.
Excellent. I guess I'm going to pair these next 3. These are my last 3 I like together just because, again, surprisingly, I didn't know this before I did it. I'm looking at it now. They're all 3 within the same. They're back to back to back. And that is Matthew Stafford, Carson Wentz, and Cam Newton. They're all being picked in the 9th to 10th round range. Mm-hmm. And I feel these guys have potential to all be top either 5 or 10 quarterbacks. Obviously, if all 3 of them were, it'd be impossible for them to be top 5. But they all have that potential, especially when you see that Carson Wentz, who last season, let me just pull up the numbers real quick. Carson Wentz threw for 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions with 4,000 yards, and he had no receivers. He only had tight ends and running backs. And he's being drafted, let me just pull it up, after like Mecole Hardman. He's being drafted after Tevin Coleman. I mean, these guys aren't going to help you at all. Maybe if like you're really, really, really weak at a position and you need some guy for a bye week, you could use them, or you could use a guy like Matthew Stafford, Carson Wentz, or Cam Newton, who could all like easily be top 10 at their position. And Cam Newton's the furthest one. Like Chris Thompson's being drafted before Cam Newton. Chris Thompson has no use.
Oh, come on now.
He's good for those. He's good for those 3 games. He's good for those 3 games. He's gonna get hurt, and then you have no use for him. At least Cam Newton has potential to be, or significant potential to be a top 10 option at his position, and he's not being drafted as that.
No, not at all. I think it more so just goes to show how deep quarterback is this year.
It is.
Because, traditionally when you think of quarterbacks, you usually think of there's about, 15 good ones, and then there's like a massive fall off where, I mean, outside of maybe the last couple guys, everybody feels relatively solid. I mean, it's kind of a weird.
I asked this question to somebody. I don't think it was you recently. But it's the thing. It's not even really a question. It's kind of made the statement, and there are no bad quarterbacks in the league. And if they are bad, if they are bad,
Mitch Trubisky?
I'm coming to that. If they are bad, they're really young. So it's either rookie deal contracts of people who they think could be good or good quarterbacks. There are no bad other, I guess I'd say other than Miami, but Tua is also their guy.
He's not even starting though.
Yeah, but fairness. I mean, yeah, that's the one situation where like I guess the guy starting isn't a future talent or potential future talent or whatever. But there's no truly bad, like people say, oh, well, Josh Allen sucks. Well, Josh Allen's also in his rookie deal. Mitch Trubisky, he's in his rookie deal. I guess Dwayne Haskins, he's in his rookie deal, but I think he sucks. But he's...
Only time will tell.
Yeah, but I guess, yeah, that's just a side tangent. But yeah, I like those three, especially because it's like, would I rather have Carson Wentz or Tevin Coleman? Like, I'd rather have Carson Wentz.
All right, and so I only have one other quarterback that I like. Essentially, like I said, I thought a lot of them were pretty good, and a lot of them are potential values. But the other one that stood out to me was going to be Jared Goff for the Rams. The odd thing about him is his touchdowns. So I'm just going to read the last 3 years. He's been 28, 32, and 22. And so, oddly enough, the season that he passed for 32 touchdowns, he had the same amount of yards as he did last season. So,
yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, and so but 10 touchdowns different. And so I think that's something that he's going to kind of pick back up. And I'm not saying he's going to get back into the 30s even necessarily, but, if you told me he was 28 and 4,600 yards, I mean, that's a solid season. And so I think the interception numbers will come back just a little. I think he's inherently always going to be an interception guy, but I think the numbers are going to come back down for him in terms of interceptions, go up with the touchdowns, and I think the yards seem to be a rather safe floor there. And so I think Jared Goff can definitely provide the top 10 upside, especially when I know I didn't mention it, but he's currently the 17th quarterback going off the board and 137th player overall. And so at number 17, he was a guy to me that just streamed essentially like the safest. I would say he's the safest, I don't even know what to say, not safe guy, if that makes sense. He's the safest non-elite guy that could get you into the top 10. So I really like him this year, and I think he's been greatly overvalued. And in most drafts, I don't even believe he's being taken. So I really like Jared Goff this year as well. I will ask, did you have – we also were looking at players that you would not want to take. I personally did not have any that – I thought that for once the ADP was actually relatively good. So I didn't – outside of the couple guys I had that should have probably been higher, I didn't really have any guys that I felt like, oh, they should be 5 or 10 spots behind.
This is going to be perceived as blasphemous. But for ADP, I don't like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. Simply because if we look down, you can get Dak Prescott, who was almost as good for...
What does almost as good mean?
Well, I think on a per-game basis, he was better than Mahomes last year. But obviously, Mahomes was hurt and whatnot. But it's the thing, and I don't think Lamar is going to replicate the success he had last year. He's going to have some success, obviously, but I don't think nearly as much. Yeah. And they're being picked at pick 19 and 23, and guys like Dak are being picked at 52. He's being drafted 3 to 4 rounds after. And there's a lot of good players in between. So rather than take, for instance, Patrick Mahomes at pick 19, you can get like a guy like Travis Kelce at 20, and then just pick up, like, for instance, Dak Prescott 3 rounds later, and you'd have a way better tight end than if you did it otherwise.
Yeah, that one I think kind of just goes to your philosophy of whether you want to have the potential like guy who's way outscores every other quarterback, or if you'd rather just do the different position, like you said.
The one thing is around pick 19 though for ADP, that is when the running backs kind of fall off a cliff. So it goes Aaron Jones at pick 18. Like it goes the ones before that: Eckler, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and then it hits Patrick Mahomes. And then the guy after that is James Conner. So I feel like the tier completely falls off after where Patrick Mahomes is right now. So that is the one saving grace for them, because after that it's James Conner and Chris Carson. How good do you feel about having those guys? So I get it, but I personally wouldn't take either one of them around the pick 20.
All right, perfect. Let's see here. What do we got next? So did you want to go ahead and which one did you want to go to next?
We could do running backs. That's fine.
Okay, so perfect. How about you give me some running backs that you like?
I really, really, really like Derrick Henry being drafted as running back 7. I had him in my ranks, even in PPR at running back 3. The amount of times they use him, and he's been durable. Granted, he's been having the ball a lot, so he might get hurt, but that's everybody. And he showed last year that their especially when they started winning in the playoffs, that their entire identity revolved around him. They have no true backup, and he's really their guy. The only concern I have for him is injury. Other than injury, I have nothing. And if he showed us one thing in the past, it's that he is durable. Granted, it'll wear down on you, sure. But like, it isn't like he hasn't had to have his knee reconstructed.
He's always been better in the second half of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Too. And in the second half of games, he just wears down defenses and just destroys them. He's so big and he's so fast. Honestly, I think he's a huge steal at number 7. In the draft we did this weekend, I think he was picked at like 4. And I had no problem with that. So it's like Alvin Kamara is ahead of him. I'd feel much safer with Derrick Henry even in a full PPR than I would Alvin Kamara.
I think that's going to be a little bit of a hot take. But
it might be. But even before him is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think is going to be very good, but he hasn't even had a snap yet. Dalvin Cook is number 4. Like, I have no faith. Like, it's not his talent, but I have no faith in it. Last year.
So are you giving us running backs you don't like as well? Or are these.
I'll get to that.
It sounds like you've said you don't like 2 of them so far.
No. Like, I have no qualms with Kamara at 6. It's just, I'd rather have Derrick Henry at 7.
But it sounds like you had qualms with Dalvin Cook.
We'll get to that. But yeah, the first one I do like is Derrick Henry.
All right. Are we just going back and forth?
Yeah.
Okay. The number 1 guy I actually like Aaron Jones a lot. His ADP right now is number 12 and overall 13. And I just think that's a lot of value. He always kills it on the touchdown game. I know people say he's going to regress, which even if he does, his number is so high that I still think he's going to still put up a lot of touchdowns. And obviously he's used really heavy in the pass game, the primary running back on the ground. And I think that under LaFleur for the second year, I think that's only going to make him more valuable in this offense. And I think they kind of have an identity now where last year was a little shaky. So I actually feel very good about Aaron Jones being a top running back. And I think being outside the top 10 is way too high. So I would definitely be comfortable having him probably top 6 if it was me personally. But he is my first of 4. So
the next guy I like is Miles Sanders, which is no surprise if anybody has listened to any of these episodes. He is being drafted as running back 12. I had him number 7 in my ranks. However, I could see him moving. I have Kenyon Drake ahead of him, or had him ahead of him, and I haven't gone through these in a couple weeks, and I'd probably bump Miles Sanders ahead of him. He was only a 53% snap share last season, still had 1,300 yards. And last season, he was started as the backup, and while Jordan Howard was healthy, he took 8 goal line carries, and I feel like Sanders will get those now. He's elite in the receiving games, great yards per touch. And last year they weren't fully committed on him, and he did all this stuff, and then they got rid of Jordan Howard and they didn't replace him. So there's a reason why they didn't replace him. And yeah, it seems like even the coach said they have full faith, and Sanders is their guy. So I like him a lot, especially at pick 12, because he, again, 1,300 yards in his rookie season, and he's really good in the pass game too. So for full PPR, he's a steal, I think. And
as someone who got him in the second round of a draft this weekend, I love him as well.
Yeah, it's a good pick.
My number 2 is actually going to be Kenyon Drake. He is currently going at number 13 right now out of 14, and I just think he's going to be another great asset. I believe he was on a touchdown per game pace when he was on the Cardinals for the last 8 games of the season. And honestly, I don't have any reason to believe he's going to not do that. I don't think Chase Edmonds is enough of a threat that they're actually going to, majorly take into his, eat into the workload. Obviously, every system has multiple backs, and they're all going to get some kind of touches. So I don't expect him to be vultured. I expect him to get essentially all of the run. And I just think he's a great value for where he's at. He's another guy, like I said, with Aaron Jones. I would not be surprised if he was a top 6 or 7-ish guy. And so I think there's honestly even an argument that he could finish around 3 or 4. I would still put him outside of probably Saquon, probably put him outside of maybe Dak, obviously CMC, but I think he's right around that borderline 3 to 6 area. So I really like him, and I think he's a steal going essentially in the second round. So.
I was loving it. I'm in a different league from you, and I was able to get Kenyon Drake and Miles Sanders. I had picked 10. So I was able to get Miles Sanders at 10, and then Kenyon Drake fell to I think I got to 14 then.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, I was very happy with those 2 picks.
Yeah, that's not a bad split at all.
But yeah, moving along. This one he's a really risky one. So I could see myself regretting this, and I wish I would have gotten him in my previous draft, but I wasn't able to. And that's Raheem Mostert. You might say, like 29 years old, had one good season, which I get. He's really risky, but he's also a league winner, or a dud. But it's the thing. He last season was incredible when they gave him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They gave him the ball like crazy in the postseason, and it worked. It comes down to people are saying like, oh, Jerick McKinnon and Tevin Coleman. Like, if those are the only two guys you have to beat out, you're doing well. Because Tevin Coleman is no good, and Jerick McKinnon hasn't done anything.
I think Jerick McKinnon could actually.
Jerick McKinnon has not done. Let me pull up Jerick McKinnon's career stats.
He's a good player. He's better than his stats.
What?
He was also coming back off injury last year.
He's not though. Like here, his year 1, 500 yards on 4.8. That's fine. Number 2, 270 yards on 5.2. That's pretty good.
Well, he was never the one.
But then when he was getting number 1 touches, 530 or 540 yards and at a 4 or 3.4 pace, and then the next season he had 150 touches for 570 yards, which equaled 3.8. I mean, when his career is exactly 4.0 yard per carry, and he's constantly hurt, I don't like him.
Constantly hurt. He got hurt one time.
Well, he's missed a lot of games, and it's just he's never done anything. Like if you saw Raheem Mostert's numbers compared to McKinnon, it's night and day from last year. And don't say, well, because McKinnon didn't play, but I mean his whole career.
He did play last year, but he was coming off injury.
Oh well, McKinnon did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know he did. But it's just Mostert showed last year he can be a every down back. And it surprises me seeing him move further back in drafts, especially when they restructure his contract to give him more money and everything else. I don't see why they wouldn't use him like they did last year, because it was working flawlessly last year.
Yeah, I think he's another guy that's definitely being overlooked.
And yeah, he's at pick 47. So, I mean, if he busts at 47, you're still okay. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but like you could still do all right if you draft correctly. And I guess I'm looking at this now. I didn't have this written down, but another one's Mark Ingram. He's at pick 43, which is 3 ahead of Mostert. I know they have J.K. Dobbins, which does complicate things, and it's kind of a question mark.
Here's the other thing.
But I could see J.K. Dobbins.
There's a wide range of outcomes for Raheem Mostert.
Work last year.
But
last
I would
year,
say
Mark Ingram only got like half the snaps anyways, and he still killed it. So I could see Mark Ingram still getting about half of the work, and J.K. Dobbins taking most of Gus Edwards' work. So I think those two are potential, like really, really, really solid flex plays, and they're being drafted in the 4th round, which is fine.
Yeah, and I did want to apologize. Jerick McKinnon has not taken a snap as a
okay. I didn't
49er.
think so.
So
I knew he had preseason snaps, but that was
that one. That is my bad. And you finished yours out, right, on running back?
There's one more. I can finish
okay.
the one more I have.
So that's okay. My number 3 out of 4 is going to be Austin Eckler. He is currently going at number 14 out of 18. Again, like I said with the top 3 guys, the reason I have these 3 guys specifically on this list is because I think that they're all going to be top 10 plays. Eckler at 14 is very disrespectful to him, and just kind of seeing how the offense is going to function, I don't see there being any reason why he's not going to get the same production, if not almost more, given Bridgewater there and how much he likes to go to the dump-offs and the short throwing. Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
For Eckler?
I'm sorry. I was thinking Tavares Jackson, excuse me. Or not
Tavares Jackson.
I'm getting
Tyrod Taylor?
Tyrod Taylor. Goodness gracious. I'm getting my terrible quarterbacks mixed
your
up.
Your check down quarterbacks.
Yeah, that is my bad. I'm not sure what I was doing there. But yes, I think Tyrod's going to be doing a lot of checkdowns and taking the safe option, and I'm expecting Eckler to be the obviously on the receiving end of most of those, him and Keenan Allen. And so I expect him to have another huge year, especially in PPR. I'm expecting him to be a top 10 play. So I will pass it back to you for your last one.
Yeah, my last one is going to be Kareem Hunt. I purposely drafted him a little early in my actually looking at this ADP now. I actually didn't take him very early. I actually took him late. But according to ESPN's ranks, which was the app we were using, it seemed like I reached like maybe 5 to 10 picks on him, but in reality, it looks like I got him right around the area everybody else was, and that's Kareem Hunt. Like I said, he's getting picked early 5th round. I really like Kareem Hunt. He was only really used in the receiving game last year. On a per game basis, he averaged around 10 a game, and this was in half PPR. So full PPR, he's probably around the 12 to 13 range, which for a backup isn't bad. But at the same time, I heard scouts. These guys obviously have nothing to do with the coaching. So if I'm just putting that out there, but they said after watching him this week in camp, they said it should be a 50-50 split, with a lot of them saying that he looked just as, if not more talented than Nick Chubb. Chubb's also out with a concussion, so he's doing all the first team reps currently in camp as well. And he's really, like, let's say they don't give him a 50-50 split, but they are expected to use him more. But let's say he gets the exact same role as last year. He still should be good for around 12 to 13 a game for a flex pay, which is great. Or 10, I'd say 10 to 13-ish, give or take. But at the same time, he's the ultimate handcuff. Because as the backup, if he can get you 10 to 12, and then let's say something happens to Chubb, he immediately rockets up to an RB1. So it's the thing. He's, for the points per game last year, and he's supposed to get more work, he was a great flex play. And he has the potential, if something happens to a starter, to be an easy running back one. And for a draft where everybody picks running backs really early, I think Kareem Hunt is a super safe pick and one with a ton of upside too.
I agree. That backfield's kind of, I don't mean this in like a bad way, but it's kind of fun because if either one gets hurt, then the other one is like that much
way
better. So it is kind of an interesting situation.
And the thing with him, he's a 5th round pick. So like, it's frustrating if you're a Nick Chubb guy, because he's like a 1st round pick. So you're like, oh well, like he's marred by his backup, but this guy, he's a 5th round pick being marred by the first guy, but he's still super useful.
My last one is going to be James Conner. He's a little bit
coming.
More on the edgy on the line of this because he's number 15, but obviously I don't need to rehash what he did. I know a couple episodes ago I kind of went on a rant about him, but James Conner, whenever he's healthy, and I know that's the primary concern is his health. When he is healthy, he's putting up RB1 numbers all day, and it's especially with Roethlisberger back, that makes me very excited for him. I mean, he was putting up not as good of numbers, but he was putting up numbers with the disaster that was last year, and so I really expect him to continue on doing what he does, and that's just getting a lot of receptions, even getting a lot of handoffs, and he scores a lot, which is awesome. And so I really like James Conner at the ADP of 15. I just think he's being very undervalued. Excuse me. I know he's one of those kind of hard guys that you like, the guys you wouldn't really want to, kind of feels wrong spending a high pick on him. But he's definitely one of those guys that I expect to finish top 10 as well, or be a borderline 10 guy. But I just think he's going to put in a massive work this year and just be a beast, and people are going to, go back to, why wasn't he a RB1 again? Or being drafted as an RB1 kind of thing. I think people just have short-term memory on him. So I really like James Conner this year. Brandon, did you have any running backs that you were on a do not draft list? I had one that was just a caution.
I have quite a few.
Okay.
I won't list all of them, or I'll be short and sweet with all of them. First one, I've said this 1,000 times, Dalvin Cook. Being drafted at RB4 is absolutely ludicrous to me. It's the thing, last year, he did everything that was expected of him, and he exceeded all expectations, ended as the RB6. And that was like, at this point, his health has been a coin flip. So now, he was healthy and everything, he was drafted, and he got to the 6th, and now they're like, hey, let's move him forward too. Like, do we honestly expect Dalvin Cook to finish as the number 4 running back? I say no. No. And like,
I think that offense is kind of built
even
for
if
that.
he were to play 16 games, I still don't think he'd be number 4.
But he's a top 10.
Probably, yeah. It's just, he's so risky, and I don't want risk in the first round.
Oh.
Like, even Clyde Edwards, who I was talking about earlier, like, think of the past couple of guys or running backs who were drafted in the first round. Mm-hmm. It was Zeke, it was Saquon, and guess what happened with both of them?
What happened to both of them?
They're both the number 1 running back that season. So with him, I think his situation's perfect, and he's one I could actually deal with. But at the same time, I'd understand if you didn't want him. There are a few more I don't like, and it's number 10, and he's number 9, I guess. This has nothing to do with his talent, and that's Joe Mixon. We're essentially drafting Joe Mixon for his floor. We're not drafting him for his ceiling because the offensive line is so bad, because there's so much dysfunction in that franchise. And
would that argument go to draft him? If you're drafting a guy because of his floor,
I expect him to.
Thing?
Usually, the problem is I expect him to stay at that floor. So, especially when I look at guys behind him: Austin Eckler, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones. I'd feel just as safe, if not safer, with all of those guys than I would Joe Mixon.
Yeah, he was kind of if you look at my list of the who to draft, he's one of the victims that falls quite a bit.
Yeah,
because of that.
I'm looking at a few more. Let's see here. Le'Veon Bell. I've totally changed my tune on Le'Veon Bell. My whole. I don't
think you're alone with that.
Not my creed, but my whole thing was, how could this man get any worse from last year? And the answer was he really couldn't. 3.2 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. He couldn't have gotten worse, and he still ended at number 15. So if you're number 15 and nothing could get worse, you should end at around 5, or you should at least get number 15 this year. He's being drafted as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
Incredible
17,
content right
18.
here.
He's being drafted as RB20, which you might say, well, that's a steal, right? In theory, yes. However, those reports from training camp, those are scary.
Yeah, Adam Gase is scary.
Yeah, Adam Gase is an idiot.
It kind of depends what your situation is. I think I'd feel a lot better if I had 2 good running backs.
It may be him at the
drafting
flex.
for the third.
That's fine, but the problem with him is they're saying Frank Gore has looked much better. Scouts are saying he looks as if he's lost a step, which, again, when last season you averaged 3.2 yards per carry and you lose a step, you could only go down.
We watched that film together.
That film was so horrible.
Not because of him.
He had one big play, and the one big play was a pick six, and it was considered his big play because he was on the field. So just like a big play with him on the field. I think his longest run was 12 yards or something. It was horrible.
Both, though, it was more so to do with the entire team versus him. It's not like he looked bad. He just had nowhere to ever go.
The problem is the only way it could get worse is if he somehow lost the workhorse role, and it's starting to look like he's beginning to lose the workhorse role.
That's one I'm going to have to see to believe, but I'm still nervous.
Yeah, I'm very nervous.
I'm nervous. The flags are
So
up.
I guess he's one of those guys. He could either be a steal because if he keeps the workhorse load, and he ended last season at number 15, and he can't get worse. So I mean. And he's being drafted at 20, it's a steal. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, if he loses a lot of that work to, I can't remember the rookie's name, and Frank Gore, then there is a major problem on their hands. There's a few more. Another one's Devin Singletary. I love Devin Singletary as a Bills fan. Mm-hmm. However, there are constant reports of Zach Moss being really good, especially in the pass game. They're saying he's very, very agile and very nimble for his size, but he's also a power back. So there have been raving reviews for Zach Moss, and he's been creeping up draft boards as well. So at this point, after all of what I've heard and what I've heard from the coaches as well, saying they want him to take, they said earlier that they wanted him to take the Frank Gore role, which was a lot of carries, and now he's exceeding even their expectations. I could see him being worth just as much, if not more, than Devin Singletary, and they're being picked 20 picks between. And
that's a weird backfield.
And the final one I'll get to is essentially the Bucs running backs. I want nothing to do with any of them.
Who finishes the best?
Maybe.
I feel like this one's pretty obvious.
Maybe Ronald Jones.
Oh, actually, I was going to say, I'm pretty confident Fournette's going to finish the best.
The problem is,
I'm not saying it's by 1,000 points.
The problem is, Leonard Fournette, we were talking about how his receiving numbers got better, which they did. Granted, they were so bad prior, it's not saying much. But his thing was all volume or all quantity and not quality.
And they were all like super short passes. You didn't even have to run a route.
Mm-hmm. His thing was, I think like 100 catches for like 500 yards for a running back on yards per catch. That's terrible. It's just he got
the best.
He got the ball so much. Whereas Ronald Jones was an underrated receiver. The problem is I could see Ronald Jones getting the receiving work and Fournette getting the rushing work, which makes both of them kind of caught in a weird place where like neither one of them's really the guy, and I don't like that. That with LaShawn McCoy, who has become the Frank Gore of the league, who just seems to kill the value of every backfield he gets in as well. I just don't like it. And they still have their, I think was it a 3rd round pick, Kershawn Vaughn as well. They still have him in the mix. There's so much going on. Basically, one guy could come out as a clear-cut guy, but that's a 1 in 4 chance, and I don't like it.
All right, I just wanted to put one little word of caution out, and this is the only one I had. I thought all the running backs were pretty straightforward, according to ADP. I just had a yellow flag on Clyde Edwards. I think he is way too risky for me personally. I think everybody is betting on position, and he's supposed to be good. I'm not trying to pretend like he's bad, but it would make me nervous spending my top 5 or top 6, because he's the 6th in ADP, my 6th pick on a guy we've never seen play football. And we're not talking about Saquon Barkley here either. I mean,
but he's going into a much better situation.
Yeah, but I'm saying Saquon was the quote unquote generational talent. I'm saying Clyde Edwards is not a quote unquote generational talent.
No, I agree. It's just I think Saquon also went into a pretty lousy system.
Well, if lousy means he's going to rush for 1,300 yards a season and 10 touchdowns, and that's fair enough. But I just think that I don't think that Clyde Edwards. I would just be nervous. I'm not saying he's not worth taking there. I'm just saying I'm a little nervous about it.
That's fair.
But Let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver. We'll try to run through these a little bit quicker. Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
Whatever you want.
How about you give us your first two?
Number one I really like is Chris Godwin. I like him a lot. He is essentially a much better version than Julian Edelman. And Julian Edelman was getting numbers last year. He was, I believe, on a points per game basis, I think top 8 or 9. And that was with Tom Brady. And I know there's a lot of mouths to feed, but Chris Godwin, he was a much better red zone threat than Mike Evans, which is a surprise, but by all the numbers, more targets, more catches, more touchdowns, all in the red zone. And I think that'll benefit him a lot, especially with Tom Brady, and who doesn't turn the ball over much, so their offense should be moving very well.
And you think he's going to outperform his ADP?
Yeah, I think he'll be better than that's tough, actually. I'm looking at the guys before him. He's technically only the 6th receiver. So I guess,
geez, you must be feeling very strong about him if you're arguing his ADP.
But he's at pick 20.
Undervalued.
He's at pick 24. I think at pick 24 he's a steal.
Well, yeah, but who would you move behind him?
James Conner, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Jones. I'd probably move him up to around pick 16, give or take.
Is he passing any wide receivers, or is he only passing?
I'd move him past DeAndre Hopkins and Tyreek Hill. I was really high on Tyreek Hill.
I would not do past Tyreek, but
I'd put him one spot ahead of him. So I see those two having very similar seasons, but I guess that's just me. And he's only a few picks ahead of Mike Evans. In the draft we had last week, Mike Evans was picked before him. I would never pick Mike Evans ahead of him. Yeah, that's a little strange.
I don't really know how that worked.
I mean, he's being picked one pick ahead of Chris Carson. Like, who would you rather have, Chris Carson or Chris Godwin? I'd way rather have Chris Godwin.
Depends on my lineup, but
in general,
if I had no running back.
Let's say
I think Chris Carson's going to be really good. I think he's another.
His health is the only thing that scares me. Like last season and the season before, when he got the ball, he was fantastic.
Outside of that hip, he's really good.
That's a big outside, though.
Well, he's supposed to be 100% back, but yeah, I mean, I get it.
Okay, another guy I have is where's he at? It's Adam Thielen. He's being picked at 32. He's being picked behind guys like Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Jonathan Taylor. All these guys are big question marks, and I think Thielen, outside of injury, should be 100% fine. Like he is a locked in easy 1,000 yards, probably 10 touchdowns at least. And I say 1,000 yards, he could easily exceed that. And he's being picked literally one spot ahead of DJ Moore. I would way rather have Adam Thielen than DJ Moore. Like I'd way rather have him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I guess those are my first two. And I mean, yeah, he's only a couple picks ahead of OBJ. I'd rather have Thielen than OBJ.
Yeah, I think so. That one, it's hard because you feel like OBJ could bounce back.
We're drafting him. OBJ is another guy I'm drafting for the floor because I think last year was the floor. Like it couldn't have gotten much worse for him, and he's still fine. But I don't think they've done enough to push him into that upper echelon that he's treated as.
How Baker is, but
yeah,
if Baker's right, then I think he could be really, really good. But well, he's shown he can. So my first two, I'm going to start with Cooper Kupp at number 13. Number
that's
39 overall.
That's why I didn't say anything.
Well, we can agree on him.
No, I'm going to just bring him up and just repeat, be like, yeah, what Austin said next time, because I like Cooper Kupp a lot too.
I mean, I believe it was 12 or 1,300 yards. I think it was in the 1,200s last year with double-digit touchdowns. And I believe he's ranked very close to Robert Woods, which never makes any sense to me.
No, he's significantly better than Robert Woods.
He had almost 10 touchdowns more with essentially the same yards and
he had more catches, more yards, and more touchdowns. And he's being picked one spot ahead of
It really
Robert
makes
Woods.
no sense. Yeah. And outside of, and I know we talk about every player, but outside of the issue of potential health, I mean, he's very consistent in what he does. And so obviously with Jared Goff throwing the ball all the time and having tons of passing yards and leading the league in attempts, I don't know why Cooper Kupp won't be on the main receiving end of that. And so I really like Cooper Kupp, and I think at 13 he's very undervalued there. He's a guy I expect to be within the top 7, or probably lower than that, but I would feel safe saying a top 7 wide receiver this year. I also really like Keenan Allen at number 20. He's the ADP for wide receiver 26, the 66th player overall, and I think at that position, I think he's a very good value. That's not even a wide receiver 2 at this point. And so I think he's definitely going to prove that he's at least 10 spots. He should have been drafted 10 spots lower than that. And he just got his extension. And even though the quarterbacking, like we mentioned, isn't as good, I guess you could argue that it Phillip Rivers, but even the quarterbacking's not going to be great. But again, he doesn't his game is kind of tailored to a shorter passing and, you know, more of a quarterback-friendly style.
His thing, too, is his route running's like, impeccable. Mm-hmm. So, like, regardless of a bad quarterback, if you can get separation, you should be better than a guy who just, like, goes up and over people. Well, exactly. And I'm looking at the 5 receivers picked ahead of him because I had Keenan Allen as well. Mm-hmm. And they're A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, DJ Chark, Tyler Lockett, and Terry McLaurin. I'd rather have Keenan Allen ahead of all of them.
Yeah, I always like Lockett more than a lot of people, but
well, fine. You'd rather have him over 5.
I agree. Yeah, I think he's definitely not the 26th best receiver. I think he's definitely below, quite a ways below that. So I really like Keenan Allen, and he's a guy, if you can snatch him up at 26, I would definitely go for it. So those are going to be my first 2. How about you give us a couple more?
I have 3 more, but 2 of them you said, Keenan Allen and Cooper Kupp, so I'm going to keep them brief. Cooper Kupp, he's being picked 1 pick ahead of Robert Woods. If you pick Robert Woods ahead of Cooper Kupp, you deserve to lose your league.
It's so strange.
Robert Woods is the most boring player alive. There's nothing exciting about him. Like, oh, you get 2 touchdowns a year. Awesome. He's the safest pick, and like I said earlier, the safe picks are at least in my opinion, are for the first couple rounds, so you don't completely just blow it. And then the next few picks, you could have some risks in there because then you'll be able to at least be consistent. I misspoke. So you'll at least be able to maybe find a diamond in the rough or something. Whereas Robert Woods, we know exactly what Robert Woods is. He's going to win you 0 leagues unless you somehow hit all your other picks. He's boring. There's nothing to him. And if you look at the guys around him, Cooper Kupp,
you got to give him props. He has 1,200 yards. I mean, he's going to get you 11 to 1,200 yards.
Wait, he's good for like 10 to 12 points a game.
The touchdowns are the issue, yeah.
He has such a low ceiling, but his floor is fine. But it's like guys like Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, they're right next to him. I'd rather have both of them by a mile. Mm-hmm. Even guys like Keenan Allen, I'd way rather have him. He's 10 picks below.
I do agree with you.
Even like Stephon Diggs. I'd rather have Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs is at pick 67 compared to trying to find Robert Woods is 42.
Yeah, that one's it's just close. I don't even know if I have an opinion on that.
I will, even if it's close, that's 25 picks difference. And that's like I will not own Robert Woods in any leagues, and I do not own Robert Woods. And again, he is the safest player, and he won't screw you, and that's fine. But at pick 40, that's not what at least that's not what I'm looking for. And the last guy, I guess if you couldn't tell, Robert Woods is one of those guys on my list who I don't like for ADP. But
I can imagine that.
Courtland Sutton is my last one who I really like. He's being picked at pick 57. Which I think is very disrespectful, especially because let me just pull up the numbers.
He had a really good year last year.
Yeah, he did. Let me pull up the numbers real quick. I can't remember him exactly.
Drew Lock is just supposed to be better. I know Jerry Jeudy people might be worried about, but
his past 2 seasons, the first one he started half the season, had 700 yards and 4 touchdowns.
That was his rookie year.
Yeah,
right?
For starting half the season, that's fine. That is more than fine, especially when you start half the games. He didn't even start all the games this year. He still ended with 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns with 72 catches. I could see him getting more work. His catch percentage went up. His yards per target went up. His yards per game went up. His receptions per game went up. His long went up. His first downs went up. His touchdowns went up. Every single number went up last year. So I think he's bound. It wasn't like, his efficiency went down, but his catches went up. No, his catches went up and his efficiency went up. So I could see him especially being for pick. Where's he at? Pick 57. I think he's a steal. He's easily a wide receiver 2 at least. And he's being picked at around the wide receiver 3 area. He has wide receiver 1 potential.
Yeah, I would say what hurts him is he just doesn't have that big name appeal.
No.
Even like the Broncos, you don't think as being like a...
Even like DJ Chark, he's being picked 8 picks ahead of him. Like, in what world is DJ Chark better than Courtland Sutton? I don't see it.
I mean, I think they're both good. But yeah, I get the point.
Yeah, I'd say Sutton is easily a guy I'd really like. And I guess I have one more I forgot to mention. There's a bunch of them. There's really a bunch of them. Like Michael Gallup's are obviously really good for a 7th round pick. But the one I also noticed, Devontae Parker, picked 69. I know, nice. But 1,300 yards last year. And he is being picked 1 pick ahead of Will Fuller. Like, Will Fuller hasn't done anything. So
Will Fuller's on another one of my lists coming up.
Yeah, like in looking at this, there are a lot of really good receivers. But which is why it pains me to see all of these mediocre ones ahead of them, which I guess I'll get into on the next section. But yeah, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he's getting beat out by a guy who's never exceeded 600 yards. It's not like in 5 years. I don't know. I like Devontae Parker as well, especially who's being picked.
All right, so quickly here, my next two, I have Michael Gallup as my third guy here. He's the number 29th receiver taken off the board at pick 73. I don't know why there's so much disrespect for him exactly.
His drops.
Well,
he had a bunch of them.
But even so, he had 113 targets, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and that was in 14 games played.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and Will Fuller is the receiver ahead of him in PPR.
I don't understand. The Cowboys' offense is going to be the exact same, if not better. So I don't. And I know people would be, but CeeDee Lamb. Well, Randall Cobb's gone, and what's that? 700 yards.
Randall Cobb at 800.
Yeah, there you go. They need to replace those yards.
And on a per game basis, he was more impressive than
Jason Witten's gone again. Not that I think Blake Jarwin will cover most of those, but
that's addition by subtraction right there.
People are gone out of this offense, and I don't think it's fair to say, yeah, but there's 2 other really good guys. So
Well, yeah, and everyone assumes it's going to be Michael Gallup who loses the work too. Michael Gallup was by the numbers on a per game basis better than Amari Cooper. Granted, he probably had the worst defenders on him and whatnot.
Well, and what's hard, with them is there's just. If you're the defense, who are you going to give?
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard because all 3 of those guys are really good, so it's not like you can really stack up against one of them either. So, I really like Michael Gallup this year, and it seems criminal that he's not. How is he not a wide receiver 2? Is my big question. But
I don't know.
I expect very similar, if not better. Like Brandon said, there were a lot of drops, and I would like to think that as a professional NFL player, you would fix those, especially being that you're a good one. So. I think that essentially sky's the limit for him, I guess up to a certain point since he does have 2 other good receivers on that team. But I fully expect him to be a wide receiver 2 this year again, and I don't know why anybody would draft him as anything other than that.
Exactly, and he statistically last year was better than guys like A.J. Brown. And right now he's currently in the offense that's perfectly built for him, whereas A.J. Brown doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird because of the Mariota thing, and I mean they switched around, and he's essentially the biggest. I mean, who else is going to take targets from him? But
there's 30 picks in between them, though.
I see the upside, is what I'm saying. I see the upside with AJ Brown because I do think he's a good player, and his yards after catch are incredible. But to your point,
that's honestly what worries me because he had what 50 catches last year for 1,000 yards.
Well,
that to me is terrifying.
It is worrisome at the same time, but it's also exciting.
Yeah, he had the I'm looking at now 62nd most catches and 24th most yards and the 9th most touchdowns. That worries me a lot.
It does,
but I'll get to that later.
But then you just have to flip it around and say, well, what if he gets 25 more catches?
I think it would just even out, and he'd be back to around the same thing.
Yeah, and that's why it's kind of just a risk. Depends what you think of the player in the offense. My next guy is going to be Julian Edelman. I'm sure this is going to be a popular one, but he's being drafted as the wide receiver 36 and 94th overall. It's another one of those situations that I just can't figure out why it's that way.
Yeah.
Everything that he is doing is extremely good. I mean, again, he had over 1,100 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. And given that he's essentially, I guess if you want to argue N'Keal Harry is somehow an incredible player this year, then you can do it. But I don't know how he's not the go-to guy again, especially not to be Mr. Instagram over here, but given how many pictures Cam and him post and the rapport they seem to have already. Cam also is not overly great, deep ball guy or has accuracy issues. And so I think that Edelman will be able to help cover up a lot of that. And I just think that he's essentially guaranteed to be a wide receiver too. And it's just another one of those for the life of me. I just can't understand why he's not being drafted in a better slot. I mean, 36, that's essentially wide receiver 3. And I don't think that's a fair slot for him.
And I agree.
He's essentially a wide receiver 4, excuse me.
I like
36. Him. So I think he's an incredible value, and if you can snipe him, I think that's an incredible play. So I really like him there as well. Brandon, if you want to just finish your list, if you have any left.
Those are all the guys I had for like I said, there's so many of them. Like I like Gallup, I like Edelman, I like a lot of them. So with the receivers, it's a lot of guys I like and a lot of guys I really don't like. It's like a lot more polarized than the other ones. The other ones like, yeah, they're fine. Like these ones, it's filled with guys I like and guys I don't like. And there are plenty of them I like, but I think those last 2 you mentioned I liked a lot as well.
So I have just a couple more here. I'll run through quickly. My next guy is Jarvis Landry. So he is wide receiver number 35 and overall number 92. Again, he's essentially a third-round pick, almost a fourth, just like Edelman. And again, he's another
not round pick.
He would be a
receiver.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry. A third round. Yeah, what number 3 receiver? And I just almost number 4 there, and I just don't understand again why. That's the big question I keep having. I mean, he had almost 1,200 yards last year with 6 touchdowns and 83 receptions, which in PPR is just an absolute machine. And again, I don't understand why anybody would just think that those numbers are going to die this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's consistently a top guy in PPR format, and I just don't get why he's not being drafted as such. Kind of with the Edelman thing. It's like we think that OBJ obviously is going to be a big deal, and I am semi-reserved on Austin Hooper, but I just can't see a reason why he would not accumulate all those targets.
Does the emergence of David Njoku worry you at all?
Kareem Hunt probably worries me more than he does, but I just think that at the end of the day, he's such a high upside player, and the floor is still so high that I just don't know why he would be taken there. Again, and like we always talk about, not a sexy name or even a sexy game, but he's just Mr. Points. So I really like him there. I have 2 more. The next guy is going to be Brandon Cooks. He's currently drafted as the wide receiver number 32. Well, the question is who's – so Deshaun Watson, new contract.
I guess.
Always balling out. Who's he throwing to? Like
people think Will Fuller. I don't think that.
Like we joke about. Will Fuller – so pretend Will Fuller is there. Who else? Kiki Cootie, who barely just made the team.
I think that David Johnson they're going to feed a lot too, but I guess somebody's got to have the yards. His concussion history and his health worries me.
Yeah, but he's
like we've said every time.
He's playing a lot though.
Like we've said every time, he, regardless of what team, should get 1,000 yards. So I guess in hindsight, I guess he's not he's like an fine.
He's another guy that I just think people, for whatever reason, this is why I think people should be thinking of Robert Woods as. Like, to me, him and Robert Woods are the same guy.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always so confused why Robert Woods is so much higher. Brandon Cooks is just, he's that dude. He's going to go out. He's going to get 1,000 to 1,200 yards and probably 6 touchdowns. And it kind of just like clockwork. And so, especially with the big receiver being gone, with Hopkins being out of there, I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head how many yards he had. I think it was close to 1,400. I'm just saying somebody's got to take that role, and it's not going to be Kiki Cootie. It's not going to be Kenny Stills. And have him in Dynasty, great if it is.
What about Randall Cobb?
It's not going to be Randall Cobb, and it's not going to be Will Fuller because he's going to play 8 games max.
The one thing that also worries me is I think Hopkins got somewhere between 12 and 1,300. I could be wrong, but for some reason that's the number that comes to me. And I view him as significantly better than Brandon Cooks. So if he was the number 1 getting those numbers, I don't see Brandon Cooks emulating that.
I still think he had, so it looks like he had 1,200 yards last year, essentially. I'm rounding up, and 1,600 the year before. So
I guess it depends which version you get, but
I think Brandon Cooks is definitely good enough, especially if Will Fuller gets hurt. Brandon Cooks is really good downfield. I just think he's going to put up really good numbers and kind of surprise a lot of people, and it's going to be not much of a surprise, if you ask me.
That's fair enough.
And again, for where you're getting him, that's a wide receiver 3. So, I have him in my league and he's on my bench. So, that's a great spot for him. Mm-hmm. If he's the definition of a guy that I think he could have a couple good weeks and people might actually try to trade him. So, or look to get him. The last one I have, Jamison Crowder. As you can probably tell from all the podcasts, I have a couple guys that I just inherently like. He's another one. He's currently wide receiver number 52. Number 141 overall. And again, I don't know how he's so low. I believe he was almost at 900 yards last year.
Someone's got to get the ball.
Playing with Sam Darnold for, I think it was 12 or 13 games. Mm-hmm. He's clearly the wide receiver 1. Rashad Perriman is hurt. I can't even, it's kind of a joke. Like, name another Jets receiver. That's not, I guess Denzel Mims, but I think he's hurt again too, and he's a rookie. Just with that and Adam Gase being an absolute disaster, I just don't know how Jamison Crowder is not, if nothing else, he's got to be at least a wide receiver 3, and I think he has to. I think he has very good chance to be at 2. Just it's another one of those things. Are we saying Jamison Crowder is the 20th best receiver in the league? No, but he's gonna put up numbers, is what I'm saying. So he's a lot better fantasy player than real life player, and I expect him to way outperform the number 52 ADP slot there for wide receiver. So that's going to wrap up my like list for a receiver. Did you have any receivers that you did not like, or I shouldn't say did not like, that you don't like their ADP on?
Yeah, I have a lot of them.
All right, I have 4. So how about you? Do you have more?
I'll make it as quick as I can.
Do you have more than 4?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you just want to do 4 at a time?
Yeah.
Do 4, and then I'll do my 4.
I'll just do my top 4.
Okay.
Number 1, you'll hate it, Devontae Adams. Again, I like him a lot. I think he's very, very good. But as wide receiver 2 by a relatively wide margin, I don't like it. That's my main beef with him. I could see him around number 5 or 6, not number 2.
Oh, come on.
Well, the problem is he's being drafted as a top 5 receiver every single year, and he's been a top 5 one time. Regardless of things in or with or without him, it always ends up that way.
But drafts are probability based. You're taking the probability.
Is the thing. Julio, though, is much safer.
I would also probably agree with that.
He's a lot safer, and he's shown that every single year he could get it done. And maybe to a slightly lesser degree with the touchdowns, but I like him, or I'd rather have him than Devontae. He's being picked 5 picks later. And in those rounds, 5 picks is a lot. My next guy, let me just scroll down. It is DJ Moore. This is not due to him. Last year I had him in my league, and he gave me top 5 production, which I was very, very, very excited for, especially
As one normally is.
Yeah. I guess I'm looking at his ADP now, and it isn't as bad as I thought it was. That being said, I still don't like him strictly because of Teddy Bridgewater. I want very little to do with him. I think he's a scrub, and I think he's going to get exposed this year. As just like, for whatever reason, Twitter and everybody has like a love affair with him. I don't see it. The next one is Robert Woods. He's ADP 42. We've spoken about Robert Woods a lot.
Yes.
And there's no love for Robert Woods. He is safe. He is boring, and his ceiling's pretty low.
It's the touchdown. It's all about the touchdowns.
It's just,
if he were getting 8
if
touchdowns,
Cooper Kupp, you can get Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods. Why would you even bother with Robert Woods? But that's just me. And my last one, he's actually the receiver picked after Robert Woods, and that's AJ Brown. I have no faith in AJ Brown. And that being said, and this might be a reason why people like him, but this is why I don't like him. Just he had no catches and still got a lot of yards. Which people say, well, give him the ball more and he'll get a ton of yards. Yeah, I don't see that. 20 yards per catch, I don't think that's sustainable. Last year, if you take his highs for each game, he had over half his yards were on his high yard catch, or his long catch, which is 16 catches. 16 of his catches made up for over half his yards. That is terrifying to me. He was 61st in catches last year, number 2 in distance, number 9 in touchdowns, and number 24 in yards. That worries me too a lot. And if you even go back to his postseason games, he had 1 catch against the Patriots, which they won, 1 catch, 4 yards. Against Baltimore, 1 catch, 9 yards. And against the Chiefs, he had 3 catches for 51 yards, which is fine. But even at the end of the year, he sputtered out and really didn't do anything. And that was once they started going like full bore, running like crazy. And I expect them to do that again this year with Derrick Henry. So I want nothing to do with him really. And even like he's getting bailed out a lot of games. Like for instance, on the against the Saints, 1 catch for 34 yards, not very good. And then of course he somehow gets a 49-yard rushing touchdown. When's he going to do that again? And like even 3 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown, I don't see that repeating either.
He is a little bit of a hype train.
Yeah, when they give him the ball a lot, he does a lot. Which you might say, well, but the problem is I don't think they're going to give him the ball a lot, which scares me because when half of your like a significant like it's almost 600 of his 1,000 yards are from his long, and that's 16 catches, and I don't like that.
Yeah, that's always a little bit concerning. That was a good list. I'm going to run through mine real quick. The first one I have DK Metcalf as being my first overrated based on ADP. He's currently being drafted as wide receiver 17, 45 overall.
This surprises me. You like DK.
I do like DK, but he's ranked ahead of Tyler Lockett. And I don't think that's how it's going to play out.
No.
I would feel a lot better with having him in the 20s, probably closer to around 25-ish, just off the top of my head.
He is. Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, I think he's very good. I just don't think he's better than Lockett, and I just don't think he's going to be used in a way that makes him better than Lockett. So I'm a little worried. I would be very worried about drafting him there. If he was my high-end wide receiver too, I'm not feeling great about it.
No.
And that's maybe more of my point than anything. It's like he feels like a wide receiver 3. like a very good wide receiver 3 or
he was another one of those
a very
guys
low end wide receiver
who
2.
reminds me of AJ Brown, where he doesn't have many catches but gets a lot of yards and touchdowns. Which,
Well, in
that's
fairness
always
to him,
worrisome
he
to
is
me.
very good. So
But yeah.
Yeah, their offense is really weird. And like we talked about in the prior episodes, I know they're planning on passing it a little more. Or at least Wilson has talked about wanting to do that. And so I think he has a pretty high ceiling. I just don't know if it's number 17 there. AJ Green is my next one at number 28, wide receiver 28, number 72 overall. And it's not because of lack of talent. It's more so because lack of play. He has not played, or what is it? Was it 6 games in 2 years or...
So you're telling me you're not on board with the hype around his injury prevention training?
I am not. He's already has a hurt hamstring. AJ
They
Green,
said that's just precautionary. They said just sore.
That dude hasn't played in over a year and a half. I am nervous to say the least about AJ Green. He's a guy, and it's kind of funny to me because I feel like in most years, guys like him would be considered flyer picks, not like oh, it's my 4th receiver.
That's what I drafted him last week. I think as my 4th receiver.
He's being picked as right outside of a wide receiver 2, and if he's my wide receiver 2, I am just absolutely devastated. Because
he's one of those guys I like, just because you're spending a 7th round pick on potentially a guy who can give you like wide receiver 1 or 2 production.
7th round pick sounds better than 28 overall for wide receiver.
I guess, yeah.
And I know that when you get to a certain point that you're kind of just, and just for frame of reference, like we mentioned, he's being drafted in front of Michael Gallup, Julian Edelman, Jarvis Landry, Brandon Cooks, well, clearly Jamison Crowder, which from my other list.
Yeah.
So it just makes me very worried, I guess.
Last weekend, I did pick him over Julian Edelman. I'm not going to lie. I went against my soul's warning there.
As long as he's not your wide receiver too, I wouldn't
He's
really...
not,
okay.
no. But it's like, after I picked him, I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
But I thought the next round, because like Julian was like 20 picks away, and I'm like, I could probably get Julian around the next round. I got greedy, and my soul kept telling me, I'm like, pick Julian, but I grabbed Green. I'm like, I'll be able to get Julian as my 4th receiver. We're golden, and nope.
Yeah,
Nope.
And just on top of that, I know Burrow is supposed to be good. People are saying he looks really good and he commands the locker room, which there's an argument that would tell me that nobody would ever say anything different than that. But I'm just saying that
he's a real loser in there. Everybody hates him.
It's different if he's, this is the Packers or the Cowboys or the, you know what I mean, the Saints. Like there's a difference here. So I'm a little bit worried about him. More so the health than anything, but like I said, if he's your wide receiver 3, I'd feel good about it. But just where he's at, that's closer to wide receiver 2, and it's like, ugh.
He's either my 3 or 4.
Yeah,
which is why I don't plan on starting him.
Yeah,
at least at the start of the season.
It's a no lose situation essentially. So I like him in that regard. My next guy, again, I've hated on this guy all the time. Brandon and I, so it'll be 2 seconds. Will Fuller.
Oh,
he's currently drafted as wide receiver number 31, number 75 overall.
How quickly they forget?
I don't understand. I mean, obviously, I'd rather have AJ Green than him because if we're talking
absolutely
the injury concern, he's the one guy in the league outside of Chris Thompson I actually feel more confident about his health.
There's no point in owning Will Fuller if you want like more than 3 games out of him.
No, he's going to play his first season with games this year, and
I'd be okay. I haven't been Dynasty. I'd be more than okay with that.
But
he was auto picked. Just as a heads up, he was auto picked.
I wouldn't have admitted that. Why were you on auto pick in a real draft?
It was I had to use my phone for something. I missed my pick.
So I'm very nervous about Will Fuller. Him and AJ Green to me are big red flag stay aways. Last guy is Mecole Hardman. I cannot fathom why he's being drafted. I know this is kind of out there, but at wide receiver 38, he's just not going to play very much. I mean, and this is maybe if you're handcuffing Tyreek Hill, which do people even handcuff receivers?
Not really.
I would say that unless your only intent is to handcuff Tyreek Hill, I'm not entirely sure why you'd want him.
The problem with him is the guys after him all kind of suck. So it's like, there's Sterling Shepard behind him. I'd probably rather have Sterling. But then there's Christian Kirk, Darius Slayton, Deshaun Jackson, Preston Williams, Justin Jefferson.
I would rather have a lot of those guys. I'm not going to.
It's like, I get where he's at. I mean, I'd probably rather have Justin Jefferson. I would rather have all those guys. I'd rather have, maybe not all, some, but
definitely
I don't know.
Eagles guy, Deshaun Jackson.
He is being drafted ahead of Sammy Watkins, which is a bit strange.
Yeah,
Sammy Watkins is the number 2.
I just don't see any value in the Mecole Hardman outside of a handcuff because you're never going to start him unless somebody gets hurt. So he's like Tyreek Hill 2.0. So I don't really know what the point of having him is. But again, that's just me. That's going to wrap up my list.
And when Hill was hurt last year, he didn't really do anything anyways.
And he was a rookie in fairness to him. But yeah, I I don't really see the upside. Very quickly, we're going to move on to tight ends. Brandon, would you like to give us your tight end one? Or, excuse me, the tight end that you feel is being underdrafted. I have one over, one under. So
I have a couple of them. I'll make them quick. So I'm on my receiver tab. Give me 1 second here.
Oops. I will give you 1 second here.
Nice. And then I clicked
Hopefully
it twice.
the listener, do you need time? I can go over mine.
No, I have it here.
Okay.
So my number one is going to be Tyler Higbee, which if you watched our tight end special, you know that I like Tyler Higbee a lot.
That you do.
Over the last 5 games, he was incredible, averaging 9 catches a game and over 100 yards per game while getting some touchdowns, which I thought was fantastic. And my main thing is that was once Jared Everett kind of fell out of the rotation. And with that, Higbee really showed that he had what it took to be a quality tight end. And I think he has some of the highest upside. And what leaves me optimistic about this is that he did this at the end of the season. Had his first 5 games been great, he fizzled out, I'd be worried.
Mm-hmm.
But he clearly ended as one of their top receiving options, which I liked a lot. And I think he has top 3 potential for tight ends. He's being drafted in like the 10th or 11th round. I don't have it pulled up, but he's being drafted very, very late.
Mm-hmm.
And I like him a lot. I actually have 3 I like. I forgot the last one. Yeah, 3. Number 2 is TJ Hockenson. Every report from camp says that he's looking fantastic and that he's bound to make the next leap in his second season, and Stafford should be back the whole time, which should help him too. And my last one is going to be Chris Herndon. He had a relatively impressive rookie season, all things considered, and was hurt last year. However, reports are saying that he should be one of the top targets for Sam Darnold. And if Sam Darnold, for instance, throws for, let's just say, 3,200 yards, if he's a top 1 to 2 target for him, he's bound for at least 700-800 yards, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And in his rookie season, he was not the starter. He had 4 touchdowns and 500 yards on almost 60 catches, which, when you're not the starter, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And this year, they're saying he's looking much better and supposed to make the leap. So I can see him being a very, very, very big sleeper pick, especially since he's being picked at pick 159, which is second to last pick in most drafts, which would mean that he's oftentimes not being drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, you're giving up nothing for him. I picked him up, and he's my tight end 3.
You have 3 tight ends?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's the thing. They're all like guys who like aren't solidified because I missed out on the good ones. So I have him, I have Hockenson, and I can't remember my third one. Yeah, but I'm almost positive it's 3. Worst case scenario, it's tight end 2.
Mm-hmm.
So like I assume one of them is going to do really well, or at least well enough. But I have Dallas Goedert too.
Yeah, I went 2 tight ends as well. Which is
so
weird for me.
Worst case scenario, I would like to think one of the 3 would pan out, and I spent like like a 16th rounder, like a 13th rounder, and a 12th rounder, or something like that. So like I wasn't out anything.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. The tight end that I like this year, I think he's not terribly far out from the real ADP, but I actually like Evan Ingram a lot this year. He is number 7, tight end number 7, 78 overall. I just see there being a very high chance for him to be a lot better and be a top 5 end option. The biggest problem, or the impediment, if you want to call it, for him is going to be his durability. Mm-hmm. In 2018, he played 11 games. In 2019, he played 8 games. And that's what kind of has you worried. But his play was great both years. If it's the thing where if he can hold it together, he would be very easily looking at close to getting around 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
He'd be right around that camp with around 6 touchdowns. And so that's kind of what gives you hope, because those would be extremely good numbers as a tight end. So,
especially now that he's being drafted after Rob Gronkowski.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like him so much more than Rob this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. So he's a guy that I would look out for, and a guy that I think is very undervalued and could definitely outperform himself. Unfortunately, he's a lot younger, so it's easier to buy into it. But he kind of falls on the on our injury team of the AJ Green, the Will Fullers, the Pittsburgh. Help me out.
James
Conner.
I always want to say John Connor, but it's not Terminator.
He's on our all injury team, but he is a little younger, and so I do feel a lot better about his chances of staying healthy. And if not even fully, staying fully healthy, at least playing more games than he has been. So that's going to be all I have for the ADP there for the 2 draft section. Did you have any additionals?
No, for the one I don't like, I'll make it quick as well. It's broken record time. It's Mark Andrews.
And when you say you don't like him, what are you necessarily
based on
referring
ADP?
to?
ADP, he's being picked up pick 44. And behind him are guys like Zach Ertz, Darren Waller, Evan Ingram. Like those guys, even Tyler Higbee. I don't know if I'd say I'd rather have them, but they're being picked significantly further back than him, and I'd be just as comfortable with them. The problem with Mark Andrews I had was he was number 7 in tight end catches, number 1 in touchdowns, which always worries me, while their offense was also number 32 in passing attempts. So he didn't have a ton of receptions, but he had a ton of touchdowns. His touchdown percentage was 16%. That, again, makes a lot of people like that.
Pretty good.
But a lot of people like me also don't like that because there's no way he's going to keep that up, in my opinion.
That's going to be very difficult.
Like, I don't know how you could have 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. Like, that's very, especially on 64 catches. He just worries me. I think, guys, if we could get a full season out of Evan Ingram, I think he'd be significantly better than Mark Andrews. I think in my rankings I have Darren Waller ahead of Mark Andrews just because he does all the small things. He catches a lot more passes. He gets more yards. He has more yards after catch. The one thing he doesn't have that he has is the touchdowns. So he's one of those guys for pick 44 when you can get a guy like Darren Waller at 62. Like, I think that's egregious. Or even a guy like Evan Ingram at 78. A Higbee at 92, Hunter Henry at 97. Like, I think all those guys are in the same echelon or the same group.
And is that your last one?
Yeah, he's really my only one. There, I mean, you could go out here and say, and obviously there's Rob Gronkowski, but I think we've spoken so much on how little we like him this year. There's no really point in rehashing it.
An incredible transition because my last pick is Rob Gronkowski. Not that he's going to be bad, just think he's severely overrated. 12 to 15 range ADP for tight end seems a lot better to me.
Yep, 7th round pick. I mean, I'm looking at this here. He's being picked one pick after Will Fuller. I was going to say, what a sham having him in the 7th pick, or the 6th round, and then I looked up. Actually, no. Him and Will Fuller have the exact same ADP. Okay. But yeah, like we were saying, Michael Gallup is being picked after him. I'd way rather have Michael Gallup than Rob Gronkowski. I know it's a different position, but I'd still I think he's worth way more than Rob.
All right, and so that's going to wrap up our list of ADP, good and bad ADP. Let's just call it that. Of our good and bad ADPs there for all the positions. We're going to be going on to our final segment now, which we alluded to at the beginning. This is going to be the worst way to build a DFS lineup, but we are going to do it. We are too much money in to say no.
Not only money, just time.
Money and time.
You say we. You're too much money and time.
I am too much money and time into denying this segment, and
because I still really don't understand it because I don't know much about DFS.
I'll be damned if I don't get the extra 10 views for this video.
Ooh, extra 10.
So we are going to, as stated previously, we are going to use this pack of cards. There are 40 cards in here, so
can I take a look at that?
I would like to think that we have enough to. I'm passing the cards over to Brandon, who is examining the Rice Krispie bar looking pack of cards.
It looks like a cassette tape.
Well, maybe we'll get lucky and there's one in there.
Maybe.
So we are going to go ahead and open this bad boy up and use some selective editing, so you don't have to watch the entirety.
By
of this
selective
disaster.
editing, do you mean no editing?
No, I'm going to open it on camera and name the players.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back once we've configured the lineup.
Okay.
I'm not making people sit down for 10 minutes or 20 minutes while I construct a lineup with salary cap.
Now, viewers, this took a lot of time. So if you could please just leave a like.
So we're going to switch to
in support.
The zoom out cam here. And we're going to...
I still don't get what... Explain DFS for those at home who don't know. And by those at home, I mean myself.
Well, so what we're going to do is we're going to... If I can open this. So how it's going to work for us is we're going to... You get a certain amount of money. We're using DraftKings. That's not a plug. I don't get paid to say that. We're using DraftKings.
Maybe we should be.
And we get... I don't remember how much money it is. But you get a salary cap and each player costs money. So that's why I can't really do this live is because it's much too difficult to put one of these together in real time. And it would be the most boring content of all time.
But thanks to selective editing,
thanks
still be
to
able
my
to
crappy
see it.
selective editing. I will say that I think there was a 20-something% chance, or was there?
It was a 40% chance.
40% chance of an autograph, which
for $20 a pack, I'd certainly hope so.
Since the pandemic has caused prices to spike on anything memorabilia or collectible related, we are paying double. So this is normally a $10 pack.
Oh, the conditions looks like trash.
Oh no. We got Le'Veon Bell right out the gate.
Oh.
We got and these obviously the beginning ones are going to be our.
That's just a bad omen.
These are the core set here. So, the commons. So
why don't you just do it in reverse order so we see all the good ones first?
I'm taking them in. The Le'Veon Bell
it's
legit
bent
has
to hell.
It has a like a line.
Look at the bottom of it.
That's okay. Nobody wants core Le'Veon. So we have Le'Veon, Ben Roethlisberger. Brandon, can I have that back?
It's got like a legitimate crease on it.
I'm dividing them by positions. N'Keal Harry.
We're looking at the stats.
Carlos Dunlap.
3.2 yards per carry.
Carlos Hyde. Let's read the fun. Brandon, would you read the fun fact?
I haven't said any fun facts today.
We have a fun fact on each card.
Fun fact: Le'Veon Bell appeared as a character in Call of Duty World War II. Yeah, that's the most productive he's been in 3 years. So
there we go. Fun. Yeah. That was fun.
That was a fun fact.
We have Nick Chubb. What's going to end up happening that I didn't think I was going to have to buy a 40-pack of cards. What's going to end up happening is we're going to essentially have 90% of the playable players here, and it's going to be a terrible segment.
Yeah, the amount of you might have to draw cards at random out of the $40.
Tyler Eifert, AJ Green, Eric Ebron.
We got doing this position based.
I am.
Then what's Tyler Eifert doing in the receivers? And what's Nick Chubb doing in the
You're
receivers?
Right. I stopped doing that after like the third card. I'm rattled right now. Calais Campbell, we are not playing with defense, so that will not be an issue.
Why do they even think people would want 40 cards?
Ryan Tannehill. Wow.
He might be a good DFS pick.
Can you give us a fun fact about Ryan
I would
Tannehill?
love to. Fun fact, Ryan majored in biology at Texas A&M. Okay.
Ooh, I did not know that.
Cool.
We have Mecole Hardman Jr.
Another great one to use.
Taylor Gabriel. Keenan Allen, who is... Probably shouldn't show this one at home. Brandon, will you read us a Keenan Allen fun fact? I'm not sure what's going on in that picture.
Keenan Allen taught himself how to play the piano. I doubt he taught himself. He probably had books in the internet that taught him, but he didn't teach himself musical theory.
No. We have Darius Geis, the no longer existent player.
I'll tell you one thing: he will not be in the DFS lineup.
He will not be in the lineup. We have Casey Hayward, Irv Smith Jr.
Ooh, Irv.
Devin White, Aaron Rodgers, which is cut terribly. Chris Godwin. This segment is going to turn out a lot worse than I thought because essentially have every player in the NFL to choose from.
I don't know why they think people want 40 cards.
Quandre Diggs, excuse me. Michael Thomas. Raheem Mostert.
You're just going to have to shuffle them and then...
Young Hoku.
Young Hoku?
Can you give us a fun fact about Young Hoku?
I bet there's plenty of fun facts.
There has to be.
Young Ho majored in logistics / intermodal transportation.
Incredible.
That's a major.
Apparently it is.
Wow, what a fact.
So we'll throw him in the worthless section. Jared Goff. Oh, we got our first. It looks like we got a numbered insert here. Of course, it has to be Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It is a gold card, numbered to, what would be number 250.
That's still too many.
I don't know an incredible amount about sports cards, but I'm assuming that to some extent that's a semi-level, smaller level hit.
If it were a good player, maybe.
We have the Fantasy Stars, week 10 of 2019 insert. Wow. Lamar Jackson and Brandon took it.
Christian Kirk and Derrick Henry. Kirk scored 3 touchdowns during the 2019 season. All of them came against the Buccaneers. Oh, that's tough. Buccaneers.
Under the radar running back is going to be Joe Mixon. This is also an insert.
Wow.
We'll put our insert cards over here. We have our first rookie card, which is going to be A.J. Dillon. So I'll put that off to the side. It is the blue label. We got DJ Moore.
Why is that upside down?
They've half of them have been.
Oh.
We got a rookie Mitchell Wilcox. Not interested. Oh, we actually did get an okay card.
Ooh.
We got the Joe Burrow rookie in the Buckeye uniform. There are 2 variants in this. There's an LSU and a Buckeye variant.
What does this mean?
Well, that's actually a relatively decent card for a...
Is it worth like $20?
I don't know. It's not worth $20.
Damn.
We are not going to make back the value of the pack.
So please, if you could give that like to generate that ad revenue.
We have a Denzel Mims rookie card as well. I don't even know if he's worth sleeving. Salvin Ahmad, Steven Montez, Javon Kinlaw. I'm just reading down the list of...
I've never even heard of that man.
John Hightower. This might be my favorite rookie card of all time, actually.
Why?
It looks... The resolution on this card is legitimately looks like a GIF that's been passed around 6 times. Same with this guy. Colby Parkinson also got the from Stanford. Got the
Okay, yeah, this looks like it was taken on a flip phone.
same with this one. I actually really like these two cards just because of how terrible they look.
There's literally no excuse.
The
for this.
photography is extremely well done in all of the other cards. Like, look how clean these pictures are, and then these are just terrible.
Fun fact:
For who?
this is for John Hightower. I couldn't tell from the picture. I had to read it. John enjoys riding dirt bikes. I don't know how that's a fact because
Incredible.
everybody
Yeah,
who
he-
doesn't enjoy
who does
riding a
not
dirt
enjoy
bike.
riding
All right,
dirt
welcome
bikes.
back, everyone. I had to take a little bit of a break there and configure the lineup that I was going to be presenting, as obviously when you open the pack, you have a lot of different options, and so I just wanted to make sure that I ran through the options off camera, just to make sure that I didn't have to do a ton of editing, and so that it was semi-easy to listen to / view. So just wanted to share with everybody my lineup really quick. Again, this was from the pack of cards you just saw me open. I know I talked about how it was going to be a terrible segment because I thought there were way too many cards since I had to get a 40 pack, but it ended up working out very well for me. Oddly enough, for whatever reason, I'm still a little new to the DFS stuff. So whatever reason, the contest I used, they had a lot of players blocked out. So for example, for whatever reason, it wouldn't let me use, I opened a Ben Roethlisberger. Wouldn't let me use him at quarterback. There were just a couple other guys. For some reason, they weren't letting me use. Again, this is more so me not knowing what I'm doing versus there being a problem with DraftKings. So just a caveat as to why my roster might look a little different. So just going to be pretty straightforward. I mean, it's up on the screen here, obviously. We started with Joe Burrow at quarterback. I know that's kind of a not awesome take, but for the price, I thought he wasn't too bad, especially given the high upside that he could have this week. Again, more so of a price thing, and just remember I did this based off one pack of cards, so I was a little limited on what I could do to make the salary cap work, and as you'll notice, I do have a little bit of extra salary up top here. It was hard, again, when you're working within player constraints to find something that you really like, an optimal lineup, so to speak. So I went ahead, we went Joe Burrow there. For our running back slots, we have Nick Chubb, Raheem Mostert. Nick Chubb is somebody, again, with all the Kareem Hunt news that everybody seems to be a little more down on than usual, but I do think that he's going to have an awesome week one, especially given I think the Browns are going to want to establish the run early and kind of keep the pressure off Baker in that, kind of the passing game a little bit, and so I think the best way to set up the pass game is with the run game, so I expect Nick Chubb to have a very nice week. Mostert, also a guy that you're probably not overly excited about, but I really do like him this week as well. I think that Shanahan's going to use him in all kinds of ways, and I think for the price that he was also a very good pick as well in that spot. Next, we went with Godwin here, Chris Godwin. He's going to be a lot better play than I was thinking when I initially created this. Today is when I'm filming this portion. This is on 9/9, so this is on Wednesday. I initially made this lineup on Tuesday, and it's looking like Mike Evans is now a game time decision. Which is kind of new news. So I think I might have locked him at a pretty good price considering what it might end up being. So I have Chris Godwin here as my wide receiver one. I think he's a very good play now, especially considering Mike Evans is not going to be 100% even if he does play. We had Keenan Allen up next here. Again, the quarterback situation is going to be a little but if anybody's going to get open and be a nice drop-off guy or, an excellent target to throw to, it's going to be Keenan Allen. So I expect him to have really high usage even if the pass game is not good. And so I like him as well this week. Now we're starting into getting into the guys here that, again, I did not have many options to fit the salary cap given that the pack of cards had 40 players and half those are rookies who you've never heard of. So Cole Beasley is our wide receiver 3. Definitely not the quote-unquote sexy pick, but he's definitely going to get a lot of work, I think, a lot of touches. And this is a PPR a DFS game that I've joined, for lack of a better way to say it. And so I think he's still going to be solid with the catches. I'm expecting him to put up, his classic 50 to 70, 80 yards and do it off quite a few catches. So I think he's a good wide receiver 3, and he definitely helped us pump up the first 2 wide receivers and get Nick Chubb. So he's definitely a good value, I think, for how much he was. I don't remember the exact amount that he was, but he was definitely a low play. And so, again, I like him in that spot, which really helps us to bolster the other positions a lot more. For the tight end slot, we have Irv Smith Jr. Not overly excited about this pick. I'm just going to be candid. I had 3 tight ends to pick from based on how I decided to do this. So
Yeah, Irv Smith Jr. He's our tight end, and I don't feel great about it. But, I think he's going to be good this year, but I don't expect a whole lot out of the first game here. So he's just kind of a shrug. The other best tight end I had to work with from the card pack was Tyler Eifert. So that should tell you about all that you need to know about the tight end slot, unfortunately. For the flex spot, we went with Joe Mixon. Again, we were able to go cheaper on quite a few spots with Joe Burrow, Irv Smith Jr., Cole Beasley, and that really helped us, even Raheem Mostert, and that really helped us to be able to put a flex like Joe Mixon in. Obviously, looking at it now, Mostert is most likely the flex here if we were being technical about it, but either way, it doesn't really matter, I guess. So we have Joe Mixon in the flex. I'm expecting him to, the Bengals are kind of an argument this week. A lot of people think that they're going to be awful. I think that Joe Mixon is going to be pretty good, and I think he's going to be able to, he's going to be what turns the offense, what gets the offense moving, what helps Burrow out. And so I'm expecting him still to get a lot of work this week and to put up some very nice numbers. And then for the defense, we actually, because of how the budgeting worked, we got to play a pretty good defense. So we went ahead and played the Eagles. I think that they're going to turn into a really nice play this week. I know that, you could say, well, duh. But the Eagles have a pretty easy play this week. They go ahead and play the the Washington football team. Don't want to be I don't even think I'm monetized, but I don't want to, don't want to get blocked on the good old YouTube there for a potential slur. So they're playing the Washington football team. Obviously, I think that goes without explanation. I just think that's a good play there. Honestly, anybody who plays Washington, I'm a big fan of. So that is the pick for this week. Again, not to say it 100 times because it's going to be edited, but this was I made this lineup. The game here was that I picked a pack of football cards. It was a 40-pack hobby pack, 40 card hobby pack, and I had to assemble a DFS lineup out of that. How to lose money 101, the stupidest idea of the year. And so that is what we did to come up with this lineup. This is a 50-50 lineup, so it's going to be pretty low risk. That means if I finish in the top 50%, I win my money back. I did not put a lot of money on this because we don't have any money making, or no money is being made on this podcast. And the card pack cost me a lot, and I had to drive to 6 different spots. But anyway, that's the lineup for this week. Let's jump right back into where we left off with the podcast. All right, and so that is going to be the DFS lineup that I am submitting for this upcoming week. I'm hoping the team does better than the segment did.
What do you think the probability of you making money on this DFS bet would be?
Higher chance than me making money back on the pack.
Yeah.
That being said, Brandon, where can the good people find us?
The good people could find us where they find us every time, Austin. They could find us on finishedfirstmedia.com. That's finishedfirstmedia.com. First spelled F-I-R-S-T, not one S-T, the little shortening version. And it's really the mecca of all things fantasy, and by all things fantasy, I mean fantasy football. And on there, you could find bi-weekly podcasts. And, I'm going to say it again, even though the past 5 weeks I've been wrong. But our friends at Finish First Media are starting a podcast soon. I'm not even going to give an estimate range at this point, but they are starting one, and it's called the High Ceilings Podcast. And it focuses all around, or maybe not all around, but it specifically focuses on dynasty football, one of the fastest growing versions of fantasy football around. If you want to get your first and your little head start into the gateway of dynasty football, and want to get a leg up on all your friends for future drafts, feel free to give them a listen. It's some great content. You could listen to it on the bus, on the train, walking to work, in the car.
Let's wrap this up.
You can listen to it wherever you want, and it's great content, fun and informative, kind of like the Suit Yourself podcast. Speaking of the Suit Yourself podcast, you can find us also on Finish First Media, but also on Suit Yourself Pod on YouTube, Suit Yourself Pod on Twitter, and Suit Yourself Podcast on Spotify and Apple Music. And by Apple Music, I mean Apple Podcasts, because I misspoke. That being said, please leave a like if you're watching this in video format. We'd really appreciate it. We spent Austin spent $21 on a pack of cards. And
a segment that's going to get cut.
Yeah, a segment that might be cut. And, any ad revenue could help build that. So
how was Joe Mixon under the radar?
He's in Cincinnati. I don't know.
What does that even mean? How can you be under the radar when you're not under the radar?
I don't know. I think anybody who knows anything about football knows who Joe Mixon is. And if you don't...
Watch out for sleeper pick Joe Mixon this year.
Hey, look out for Derrick Henry this year. I think he's really going to be a sleeper pick. But that being said, give us a follow, give us a like, send questions to us as well. We love answering them, and we might even answer them on the show. We'll see. That's all we have for now. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week. And expect us again this upcoming Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.